it up. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac, Jack, and Jim This Week in Sports show. Every Sunday, we'll be doing this until the NFL kicks up again, and we'll change it back to the big football show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, the historian when it comes to sports, a lot of knowledge in that big brain of his, Jack Hirsch. Also, Hall of Fame boxing writer, unbelievable boxing writing legend, Jim Jeffcoat, our legend, the greatest defensive end in Dallas Cowboy history. Played football for over 15 years. So he knows football inside and out, and a great sports fan too. Knows a lot about basketball and other related things. So we bring you this every week. We go over the biggest stories. We take our takes. We have 3 guests coming in today, folks. We have Keith Angle, who's the host of TGI Sports. His specialty, especially this time of year, is the March Madness, where he covers basketball like a blanket. We have Robert Butler with his sports commentary and opinion. He's always breaking the biggest stories first. Even when he's driving a van, he's all over the place. And we'll also have the Philly sports guy, Jamie Pags. Not only a great commentator, sports analyst, but he ran a heck of a special last night for the Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel. We'll talk to him a little bit about that and some Philly sports. So, guys, let's get into it. The biggest stories, again, were in the NFL, and it concerned 2 quarterbacks in the beginning of the week. The great Aaron Rodgers signed a $200 million contract for 4 years, $153 million that was guaranteed to him. And right after that, the other shoe drops. 33-year-old Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks, who's been on multiple All-Pro, been in the Super Bowl twice, lost once because of a great call by his coach down at the goal line. Probably could have won 2 Super Bowls. Gets traded to Denver, and Denver becomes a Super Bowl threat. So, guys, first of all, I mean, we covered Aaron Rodgers this week, but this is a huge story. 38 years old. He's getting 4 years, multiple MVP, probably first or second best quarterback in the league right now at this time. Gets a great deal. And Jack, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, good morning, fellas. Did the Packers have any choice? I mean, they had to overwhelm Aaron Rodgers after everything that went on. They had to finally put a close to this ugly chapter in the franchise history, because the talk was Aaron Rodgers wasn't 100% sure where he wanted to go to. He was torn between staying at the Packers and going elsewhere. And it was such a thin line. It could have been as little as one negative comment coming from the Packer front office during this time that could have pushed Aaron Rodgers to have gone to the Denver Broncos, let's say, before they got Russell Wilson. So what they did was overwhelm him. They showed him the ultimate love, made him the highest paid player in NFL history, over a 4-year contract, $200 million, $153 million guaranteed. And they put him in a position where financially he would have been taking a hit had he gone elsewhere. And they gave him the ultimate love, and they patched things up. And if you're a Packer fan, I'd be very happy about this. I know the talk is he's 38. It's going to take him to age 42. And I remember what Jim said at the start of last season with Tom Brady. Every player gets old sooner or later. Well, Brady was runner-up for the MVP award to Aaron Rodgers last year. Aaron Rodgers is going to be really top of the line in the next 3 years or so. He's not going to fall apart. It's not like a wide receiver who loses a step. If a quarterback loses a physical step, a guy of Aaron Rodgers' caliber, he can adjust. He can still be top of the line. Worst case scenario, instead of being one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, he'll be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in 3 years. So he's still going to be the guy. The Packers had no choice. It's win-win for Aaron Rodgers, win-win for the Packers. And, they got it done. And Green Bay Nation, I'm sure, is thrilled.
Jim, two questions for you on the same subject here. Okay, so they pay the Packers all this money. We have Robert Butler in every week, and he looked it up, stated that any quarterback that takes up more than 20% of the team's salary has never in the history of football won. This, of course, takes more than 20% of the Packers' salary. So I guess it would be up to Aaron Rodgers whether he would want to restructure it or not. But wasn't he just complaining before all this happened in the beginning of the year that he didn't have the players around him to win a championship? And with doing this, it's going to be hard for Green Bay to do the same thing.
Exactly. They had to franchise Devontae Adams to keep him. And you're right. That's going to be hard to put a team. And the only issue, I'm happy for Aaron Rodgers that he got his money. But the things that you said are a problem in that organization from the sense he's performed at a high level. But let's look at it. He's won one Super Bowl, and that was with obviously in the early 2000s. That's the only Super Bowl he's won, and that's not of his physical talents that I'm talking about. Is he really helping them win? Because the only one he's won with is Mike McCartney, and we know now what Mike McCartney is. Is it the scheme that they use, or is it Aaron Rodgers? And
Jim, they had the best regular season record last year, the Packers, best record in the NFL. They lost the playoff game because they were pathetic on special teams. They had the worst special teams in the NFL. That's why they lost in the playoffs.
Jack, they didn't perform like they did there because if you remember, San Francisco came and it was 15 to 11 or something like that. It was a low-scoring game. So don't give me that they had the best record in that special teams. Yes, special teams were a problem, but you let a team come into Lambeau Stadium and win at Lambeau Stadium, and we know about the Ice Bowl and everything from history and everything, but they wanted San Francisco went in there and beat them at their own game. So don't give me that excuse.
And Aaron Rodgers, his job being a great quarterback is to lift that team up during those times, right? I agree with you. I agree with you, Jim. Listen, Green Bay could have picked up another quarterback. They could have went and got Russell Wilson. They could have went and got maybe.
Well, they got Jordan Love. They drafted Jordan Love #1, and now what do you do with Love? You sit him there.
We're gonna cut your losses. He's apparently not good enough.
We're gonna get.
How do we know? If you say that, Jack, Brett Favre was the starting quarterback.
The NFL needs two quarterbacks anyway in this day and age. Every team should have a competent backup. He played last year, Jordan Love, when he played against the Chiefs.
He played one game, Jack.
One game.
He was so disrespected. Listen, Jordan Love was so disrespected. They sent his fiance and his mother in the last row at Kansas City.
We will get to Jordan Love later on the show more in depth. I want to talk a little bit before Keith comes up about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's only 33 years old. A lot of people think he's a lot older than that. He's not. He's a very young quarterback. And if he's not hurt, I told you all before, I think he's top 5, and that's even with Brady playing. I think he's just a pebble away from Aaron Rodgers and away from Tom Brady. That's my opinion, Jack. You can shake your head. I'm just telling you my opinion. That's my opinion. So I think Russell Wilson is a winner. He makes things happen, and he lifts the team up to win. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks since he's been in the league. Yes. He's been his stats match up to anybody in the league since he's been playing. So I think that this was an incredible move by Denver, and I think this makes Denver a legitimate Super Bowl threat right now. Quickly, what do you think, Jack?
Let me tell you, a quarterback more than any other player has to be a leader. And I question Russell Wilson's leadership. No, when Seattle was at the top of their game, going to 2 Super Bowls in a row, there was talk he wasn't the type of guy, who was the greatest in the locker room. He was adequate at most. Listen, some of the Seattle players are saying now that he was kind of checking out last season. And if you're a leader, you never check out under any circumstance at all, okay? And there was a certain indifference with Russell Wilson. I remember when all the Seattle players I think after they lost that Super Bowl, they all got together in the offseason, and there was a little talk. They were a little surprised that Russell Wilson got together with them to go on a vacation. It was a pleasant surprise. Normally a leader, he initiates it. He gets the guys together. He brings them together. Jim, you played a lot of football in your life, and I'm sure you've had some quarterbacks who were real leaders, like you saw, a couple of legendary quarterbacks, Troy Aikman, Jim Kelly. But you've probably played with lower level guys, quarterbacks. You're not going to mention their name, and you shouldn't, who weren't really leaders.
Love the way he says what you're going to say.
Russell Wilson is an outstanding on
You're
the field. But
you're not going to say their name.
He's never shown himself to be a true leader there.
Oh, my God. Go ahead, Jim.
But here's the thing, and I'm with Mac on this, on Russell Wilson. I think he is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. And his argument is they didn't give him protection. They kept draining that offensive line. They kept draining. He had no running game. He had none at all. I mean, when they won the Super Bowl, they had a running game. They had an offensive line. They took everything away from him. I don't blame Russell Wilson for the struggles of Seattle. I blame Pete Carroll, because Pete Carroll until this year refused to change. He refused. He had a system, and he was going to use that system. He never looked at what he had, the players, and how to adjust to it. Now, all of a sudden, now his job's on the line. Now he's going to adjust. Pete Carroll is the fault in Seattle. It's not
Keith a nice weapon in DK Metcalf, Russell Wilson.
Keith, good to have you on, Keith. I'm trying to get you on here. They don't want to let you on.
I think Jack goes into a filibuster every time he sees me pop in a room.
Yeah, I think so. Quick to Jack means 10 minutes. Keith, when we have you on, especially this time of year, I mean, you're all over college basketball. So I want to start off with that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
The tournaments there were a lot of upsets. A lot of seeds maybe got affected by those upsets. Yeah. And explain to the people that are watching, who's responsible for setting the seedings, and what are they looking at, Keith, really? I mean, what's the difference between a team that's 22-9 and a team that's 23-9? And, their schedule is kind of similar, but they're in a different league, or one won the division and the other one came in second.
Yeah, well, there's an NCAA committee that's set up, similar to football, I guess, to choose the 68 teams that will participate next week, made up of athletic directors and team presidents and, people around the game. And they're going to look at all kinds of criteria. Today, there's all kinds of criteria, right? There's quad 1 wins, quad 2 wins, net, different Sagarin ratings. There's, strength of schedule. There's probably 15 different calculations that they use, and some of them, and I didn't even touch on, that's just the ones that come to the top of my head. I mean, some of them to me are, if they don't give you the eye test, right? They're just numbers plugged into a computer. And that's some of the things they look at, where some teams get hurt because a lot of these guys don't watch the games and judge it by the eye test, as Jay Billis is famous for saying. But, this weekend, it did affect a lot of seedings, but it also, a lot of teams on the bubble got knocked out because the teams moved up. Texas A&M moved up. They were out of the tournament, and they're in the tournament now because getting to the SEC final today pretty handily as well. Indiana played their way in this weekend. And some other teams like Dayton and SMU and Xavier and Oklahoma. Oklahoma had a nice run in the SEC tournament, and if they got to the final, they likely would. The Big 12 tournament, they likely would have. I got them a couple years ahead of myself. They probably would have got in if they got to the final today. So it's going to be an interesting. There's probably about 12 spots right now that are kind of up in the air as far as the back end and who's in and who's out. The number 1 seeds, they've been affected this weekend with Duke going out, with Auburn going out badly. Who else? Baylor losing in the quarterfinals of their tournament. So it's kind of wide open. Gonzaga's there, obviously. Kansas is likely solid, but the other 2 spots are kind of wide open in my mind.
Yep.
Yeah,
Arizona should be a lock as well, by the way. So it's probably one spot.
Auburn was a pretty big favorite like a week or 2 ago.
Yeah,
But
they have not played well all the last month, and they can't play away from home. In the SEC, they've been terrible away from home. And come the NCAA tournament, their style of play may not translate. You could see this team go out early if they can't get it into a helter-skelter kind of game, which is what they like. If it breaks down into a half-court game, which these tournament games often do, at least late, they're going to be in trouble.
yeah, this is probably the biggest office pool, company pool thing that's bet on every year, even bigger than the NFL. It's huge as far as it goes in office anyway.
There was a study, not to interrupt you, years ago, there was a study that this coming Monday is like the least productive day at work around this country.
I've read
any day of the year.
I read something like that. So the NIT, you just don't hear about anymore. I mean, I can remember when it was like half and half. You know, you didn't make this, but you made that. The NIT, they were all over it. They showed it on TV. People were proud of it, and even before the NCAA tournament. Do they even have an NIT tournament anymore, Keith?
They do, and there's a couple other lower level tournaments as well. So I mean, virtually every team can go to some kind of tournament. By the time you're done, there's a couple other tournaments. I don't even know what they call them anymore because the names change. But the NIT has lost its stature for sure as the NCAA has grown, not just in stature but in volume. You know, when they had 24 teams, you know, back in the early 70s, the NIT still had some really good teams that would go there, and it was still a prestigious tournament. And before that, the NIT was more prestigious than the NCAA for a lot of years.
One time.
And I can remember famously, Al McGuire had the number one team in the country at Marquette, 70, 71, somewhere around there. And he didn't like where they were sending him in the NCAA tournament, and he refused. He went to the NIT and won there.
Hey, I go back further. I remember Walt Clyde Frazier lighting it up in the NIT.
For Southern Illinois, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that game, it's funny. That game was just on MSG a couple of weeks ago, the final.
Interesting.
I'm old. This is what I watch.
You are old. Don't worry about it, though. Next thing I want to talk to you about is, of course, Major League Baseball. That's one of the bigger stories this week. You know, they've finally ratified their contract. They're going to be opening up spring. I think it's April 7th, if I'm not mistaken. So the players, 2-1, owners, all ratified it. A lot of rule changes, Keith. You know, they made the bases bigger. They look like big pillows out there.
Well, I think that's taking effect next year. I think the bases and the.
Okay.
I think,
but it will be coming. The shift has been outlawed.
Ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous.
The NL has a DH now, which I'm glad at least both leagues are doing the same thing. I mean, I didn't care which way it went, but please get on the same page. That's been ridiculous. You know, there's a lot of, they took away the man on second, which I'm glad they did that. And, you know, some of the other dumb rule changes. Of course, the pitch clock has got in. It's kind of sad that we have to monitor how long they throw between pitches, but they have to because some guys stand out there and just look around at the fans and admire themselves being on the mound, I guess. But those kind of things, and the two teams added a playoff. So let's start with the first one. That's really in effect that I have a problem with. They're outlawing the shift, Keith. You know, again, Dr. Paul was on, you know, he's on Star Sports News, and he changed his mind. He said the shift was never like this before. They shifted for some players because they knew they were pull hitters like Ted Williams. And now the analytics have that they know almost exactly 90% of the time where they hit the ball. So there's no flow like there used to be to the game. And of course, my response is that, well, learn how to bunt. I mean, if you're a professional hitter, at least it's the least you could do is learn how to bunt. But I think the biggest problem, Keith, is that whether they hit 220 or 280, they're still going to make $20 million a year. So they really don't have to improve. There's no incentive for them to bring up their batting averages if they're going to make $10 to $20 million a year anyway.
Yeah. Well, you know, I hate the rule change. You don't legislate. Put rules into place to fix things that you can fix by teaching people how to play the game correctly, right? The whole idea is there's 9 guys out there, and your job is to hit it where they aren't. If they're all over here, then hit it over there. It's not simple. It's rocket science, but we've become this ESPN highlight and video game society, or this is the way we watch sports, right? So we want to see home runs. So the game has now become home runs, strikeouts and walks, or watching guys hit into double plays with men on first and second because they just hit into the teeth of the shift. It's not the shift's fault. It's the way the game is taught, and the way the approach to the game is wrong today. And you need somebody to come in and totally change the approach. But I don't know. I don't know where that's going to happen, because they think this is what people want to see. I don't want to see this. It's boring to watch guys try to hit through the shift and over the shift constantly all night long. And I'm not saying you should eliminate the shift by any means, but this is about the way the game is played. And when you make rule changes like this and the bases, now you're diametrically changing the way the game is played. And has been played for 140 years. And then the younger people will tell me I'm just old and, things have to change and evolve. And I'm like, well, why? Baseball was like the perfect game. And if you didn't like it, then don't watch it. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. But now it's turned into something.
The game's a little too long. You have to admit that. A little, especially you go to a night game, it starts 7:10. It shouldn't be ending close to 11. And, they last too long.
I won't disagree. But again, the shift's not going to change that. Eliminating the shift's going to put more offense in the game and make games longer, because, now guys are going to be able to hit the way they want.
Yeah.
And again, as far as putting pitch clocks in, all right, fine, speed it up that way. But you got a rule book. And if you just enforce the rule book and call the strike zone as it's supposed to be called, you would speed games up just like that. You get the ball, you're supposed to throw it back. Don't get out of the batter's box. The little things that umpires don't enforce, and the league doesn't make them enforce, would speed the game up by itself.
Stop making sense. I can imagine Jim.
I know. It's ridiculous.
I can imagine Jim playing on the Cowboys, and they say, "Wait, you can't blitz anymore. That's against."
Yeah, right. It'd be like the Pro Bowl, right?
That's been my argument in all sports. And Keith makes a good point: is they keep changing the rules to get more offense, but what about defenses? And that's what the problem is that the shift was fine. And that you just have to, just like Keith said, you hit it where they're not. You have to learn to do those things. But if you keep changing all these rules, you take away the beauty of the game. You take away some of the game when you do all this.
Jim and guys, I talk about this all the time when I go off on these rants about Major League Baseball. Every single rule change in Major League Baseball since 1968 has been to benefit offense, not pitching. Mm-hmm. They lowered the mound. They brought in the DHs. They made the ballpark smaller. They eliminate shifts. Then when the pitchers get a little bit of an edge because they find this thing they can do with rosin and whatever they were doing last year. I don't remember the whole thing. We got to stop that, because the pitchers have a little bit of an edge now. We can't have that.
Yeah. And you know something? If Major League Baseball had a product that they could sponsor, they would let the pitchers use it. I guarantee you that.
Yeah. But you're probably right. You're probably right. Rob Manfred would be all over that.
Yes. So what do you think about the adding the 2 games? Now, the Mets just went out and made a big signing. They're signing 8 free agents as they go. Mets just picked up starting a pitcher from Oakland. But if you don't have to win your division, and if you do win your division and a wild card team gets in, look at the Atlanta Braves, for example, right? They had a very normal, almost bad year. They get in the playoffs. They beat all these other teams that are have won 106 games and stuff like that. So what's going to inspire teams to build the best teams, or to make that commitment to making their rosters the best, when all I got to do now is just kind of sneak in the playoffs? And there'll be more teams added. I know that as it goes along. There's going to be more teams that are going to be in the playoffs because they make more money.
They tried to get to 14 during this negotiation.
So what would make a team really go all out to build their team into a winning team, a great team, if all you got to do now is make the playoffs and get hot?
Yeah. Again, it's not. I'm not a fan of the expanded playoffs either. I thought there were plenty of teams in now. I mean, same thing in the NFL. I mean, I think there's too many teams getting in the NFL. When you get teams that are, 8-8 or even below getting in the NFL, and in Major League Baseball, you're seeing teams barely above 500 get in. And maybe if they're going to keep these types of, and they're never going backwards. We know that, right? Because there's too much money involved and that type of thing. I mean, if you really want to give teams incentive to win their division, and the one and done wild card is done, right? So you don't have to worry about staying out of that, do or die game. The only way to do it is to maybe penalize these teams and the teams with the better records, at least in the first round, let's say. Maybe the wild card teams don't get any home games, right? Maybe they can play every game at the better records stadium. And again, I don't like to go those routes.
That's a good idea, Keith, except home field isn't that important in baseball. I mean, it's a teeny bit, but it's not that important.
It would be if you were there for a week.
Money-wise for the
money-wise.
Yeah, that's what it is. Everything is started because of the money.
Yeah, and the owners.
Let's look at it, because you got playing games in the NBA, like you said, NFL expanded, and now baseball is expanded. I don't know about the NHL. I don't follow that closely enough.
No, half the league makes it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, Keith, right? You just said, well, now we should penalize the Wild, so we're making another rule, and then I mean, I heard somebody say give the better team with a better record a ghost win. That
was Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer came up with that idea during the negotiations. That's the worst idea I ever heard of.
Just give them a win. I mean, 2 out of 3, give them a win. It evens it out. And here you go. You just make it more and more complicated.
No, I don't want to do that.
Simple as
you got to do something though. You're right. You got to incentivize teams to want to win the division, because these races don't mean anything at the end, right?
I think so. I mean, or start cutting the games off the Major League Baseball schedule. Get it down to 150 games or whatever. I mean, you got to do something somewhere. So anyway, Keith, I want to thank you for coming in as you always do. Thanks for the update on the March Madness and the teams. Like I said, you're all over that, and me and you agree a lot when it comes to Major League Baseball, Keith. So everybody, check out TGI Sports. Keith Engel, great show, great analysis. Great co-host, and sometimes some really good interviews too. So.
And Keith, thanks for not speaking about the Knicks today. Thank you.
Well, you're the guys who keep bringing them up. Jeez. Thanks, guys.
All right, Keith. Take care, buddy. So backstage right now, we got one of my favorite guests, Robert Butler, who comes in every Friday and every Sunday. And Robert's, folks don't realize this. Robert's, not only does he do a great job in analyzing and talking about sports, he's a newsbreaker, Jim. I mean, Deshaun Watson, he was released. He's not going to be indicted. Robert is on the air like in 30 seconds, driving a farm truck somewhere in out in the fields, and he's on and he's just reporting, breaking the news. It's out of his mind. I don't know what's going on with it. So let's bring up Robert and see how it's going.
Yeah, pull over on the side of the roads and do that. It's supposedly a brand builder recommendation. So
yeah, there you go. There you go. So Robert breaks all the big stories too, folks. So check him out at Sports Scope. Robert, every week I kind of send you some topics. Sometimes we veer off, sometimes we don't. But of course, the big story from yesterday is Deshaun Watson. He will not be criminally indicted, but he still has 22 civil lawsuits going out there. As Jim mentioned, it's not now, it's not beyond. But anyway, it's not the same criteria as criminal charges. It has to be believed more than not that these things happen. The bar is a lot lower in civil suits than it is in criminal. So these suits don't have to have all the evidence a criminal suit does. You also got that suspension looming out there. Once a team tries to start Watson, because of the allegations, because of the way NFL is, they're going to suspend him. We don't know for how many games. We don't know if it's going to be for half a season. We don't know. But the NFL will take action. They always do. And a team that picks him up is going to have to give a boatload of something, either draft picks or players and draft picks. And his talent-wise, he's worth it. But what team you think would be in the hunt for somebody like this that you know is not going to start right away, that still has these allegations pending, You might have protests. Some of the fans
Yeah.
may be mad they're starting quarterback. There's a lot of baggage that comes with this, Robert. So what teams you think are in the hunt for this guy?
Well, this is going to be interesting. Mike Florio with Pro Football Talk broke this down. I read an article that he put out yesterday saying that basically it's not a lock he's going to get suspended. Antonio Brown did not get suspended for being sued for sexual assault or whatever, air quote sued. Now, Roethlisberger did, and he says, this guy's got a legal background, Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. Not a huge Florio fan, but he's on top of stuff like this, and he's saying that it's no guarantee that NFL does not want, because remember, Ben Roethlisberger was never charged either, but he was suspended kind of premature, but he went on and accepted it. It was two different allegations. This is kind of a looped in one lump sum. And I understand it's 22 people. So it's not a lock as far as this exemption that the commissioner puts these players on. He kind of took his own exemption last year and didn't play for Houston. So there's a chance nothing could happen, guys.
Okay.
Guys, but let's say they do suspend them for 8 games, approximately half the season. Why should that scare a team off? Let's say like the Carolina Panthers, who reportedly are all in on signing Watson.
Yes.
They could just rationalize, well, this is half the season, treat it like an injury, and then we have our franchise quarterback for the next 10, 12 years. You stick it out with what you have in the meantime. I don't think that should scare a team away, even if it's as much as 8 games.
Guys, he's 26 years old. He's third in quarterback completion percentage and QBR rating in the last 5 years. The other 2 players that are in that group are Drew Brees and Tom Brady. They're retired, so now he's third in the NFL. 26. This guy's won playoff games, coming off a national championship. He's well known. He's going to be a big cap hit, but I'm sure they can work that out in the cap. And you're right, Jack. That's all I've read yesterday. Carolina is head over heels for him. Also, Cleveland, this is ESPN, Cleveland, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, and Indianapolis. I doubt if they're going to trade in division with the Colts. You could pencil out Indianapolis. Houston would be insane to do that. But those teams will be in it, and I think Cleveland should go after him. I would trade Myles Garrett some draft picks personally. I know you guys being defensive guys may go crazy on that one, but
I mean,
have you lost your mind, Robert?
I was waiting for that one.
Jim could even speak to this, how players feel. What type of credibility is the Cleveland Brown organization going to have? They've made a firm commitment to Baker Mayfield.
Have they?
The other players see that. They tell Baker Mayfield, you're definitely our quarterback next year. No ifs or buts about it. And then they signed Deshaun Watson. What kind of message does that send?
They picked up his option.
Yeah.
They picked up his option. That's all they've done. They're not negotiating a new contract. And if they can upgrade a quarterback, then they're going to upgrade a quarterback.
Same with Jalen Hurts with the Eagles. I mean, a young quarterback like that, just the idea that there's talk that they're bidding on, Deshaun Watson. Isn't that upsetting? If they don't sign him, that's always going to stick with the guys within the locker room and to Jalen Hurts that they went after Deshaun Watson.
That's just the business.
We talked Russell very quickly, and then I'll get off this. We talked about Russell Wilson before. People forget when Peyton Manning was a free agent before Denver signed him, Pete Carroll showed up at Peyton Manning's doorstep, and Peyton Manning blew him off. That's not the way he wanted to be interviewed. They tried to get Peyton Manning to come over to quarterback the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, what does that tell you, basically? That may have been in the back of Russell Wilson's mind always, even though he never said it.
Robert and Jim, I think no matter, you got to have confidence to play football. You know how good you are or where you stack up. I would imagine if I'm Jalen Hurts and they get Deshaun Watson, I say you got a better quarterback, even if I'm Jalen Hurts, right? I mean, you got to be honest with yourself right now. Deshaun Watson is twice, 3 times good as Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, you
Yeah.
got to be honest with yourself, I think, right, Jim? I mean, suppose
Yeah.
they said, all right, Jim, we're bringing in Reggie White. I mean,
I mean,
are you
yeah,
going to be mad at Dallas Cowboys if that might be your replacement? I mean,
yeah.
you know what I
You're
mean? I
right.
mean, you got to be honest with yourself, even though you were a great pass rusher. If you're talking somebody the caliber of Reggie White or Bruce Smith,
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
like that, I mean, you got to, well, what are you going to do?
No, you have no problem with that. You just figure out, do you have a role, or are you going to be looking for a new team?
Right.
That's just to be honest.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
competed with Tua in college, and then he realized that Tua won that job. He transferred to Oklahoma. So
Yeah.
NFL football in general, I mean, best player wins. You know?
It's just what happened with Cleveland with Mari Cooper and Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the same thing. They basically said, we feel that Amari Cooper is better than you, so we're going to take Cooper. Now you can look for a job, or we're going to cut you.
Yeah, well,
You can find a trade.
they were in talks too, trying to restructure the contract, and I don't think they were going well either, Jim. I think that was
That's probably it too. You're
All right.
probably right, but I'm just saying they felt
Yeah.
that Amari Cooper at 28 was better than
a
Jarvis
little
Landry.
upgrade. Sure, a little upgrade. So I'm looking at a couple things here with who with Russell. Let's go to Russell Wilson real quick, because
Okay.
Russell Wilson intrigues me a lot, Robert. I think that Russell Wilson is probably the best underrated quarterback in the league. I mean, people don't realize how good he is. If you look up his stats, he's right up there with Brady. He's right up there. Since he's been in football, his stats are right there. And they don't even talk about this guy. They talk more about Jackson being a black quarterback than Russell Wilson being a great black. I don't get it. So let's take a look a little bit at Rodgers in Russell Wilson. Rodgers, of course, I think right now is better than Russell Wilson. I think we could all say that. But I don't think he's much better than Russell Wilson. And I think Green Bay had a chance here of not selling a farm to Aaron Rodgers and maybe going after Russell Wilson, saying, Denver, have Aaron Rodgers. We'll take Russell Wilson. I think that Green Bay caved way too much to Aaron Rodgers this year, Robert, because as you said before, 20%, if you're making 20% of the salary as a quarterback, you don't win the Super Bowl.
It's over 14%. I mean, the early reports are he's going to be making $50 million a year. The cap is 208, guys. That's close to 25%. That is insane. They're not going to win. And plus, on top of that, they're going to pay. They franchise Devontae Adams. You're talking $18 million there, 18 to 20 million with Devontae Adams. What are they going to do about other receivers, defenders? They're not going to make the Super Bowl. They've got an easy division compared to everybody else. But and you're right, Russell Wilson. Other than last year, a freak injury with the finger. I think he was carrying that team the last couple of years. Their roster's one of the bottom rosters, playing at an MVP level, in my opinion. Yeah, I think Denver come out like a bandit in that deal. They're going to be they're top 5 and as far as being favorites to win the Super Bowl next year, according to all these websites. I want to say MGM, and of course, I can't remember the other one. FanDuel. FanDuel's got him top 5. So that's going to be interesting. I think he's got another shot to win a Super Bowl and add to his resume, Russell Wilson.
Why don't all you guys just wear Russell Wilson T-shirts? Don't you guys get it next year? Denver's going to have to sign him to a mega deal comparable to what Aaron Rodgers got, but longer. They're probably going to have to sign him to a 6-year deal next year because he's a little younger. And what about the cap hit? Denver's going to take the same cap hit as the Packers. And as far as Max saying, the Packers should have gone after Russell Wilson, they didn't have to give up anything to re-sign Aaron Rodgers. They would have had to give up tremendous capital to, get Russell Wilson, who had a no-trade clause. So if the Packers were in a rebuild mode, Russell Wilson wasn't going to waive his no-trade clause to go to Green Bay. It was undoable that. Packers had
Yeah,
no
he wouldn't even
choice.
go to Washington. He didn't want to go to Washington, which I think is a smart idea.
Yeah.
I understand that. I definitely understand that.
Nobody
Robert,
wants to
so
work for Dan Snyder. Yeah.
So there's a player that was drafted a few years ago in the first round. People say that if Jordan Love was in the draft class today, he'd be the number 1 rated quarterback right now. And Jordan Love, the year before he got a new coach and everything, he set the college football on fire. So now you got Aaron Rodgers there for 4 years. And you got Jordan Love sitting on the bench for another 4 years, unless Rodgers gets hurt. Can Green Bay make a play to get some draft picks? Because it's going to be hard for them to get some.
Now his cap number's very low. It's like $3 to $4 million. But I don't know if they can get a second round pick. Jack, that would be a mirror, or Mac, that would be a miracle. And Jack, Russell Wilson's got 2 years left on his contract. $24 million cap hit this year. That's not like $50 million, potentially 46 from Aaron Rodgers. And then it's 27 next year. So they could probably wait a year before they extend him going into Russell Wilson. But going back to Jordan Love, he didn't look that good. The fact that I don't think that stock is high as you're saying, Mac. I just disagree. I think that he's. I think they're probably holding for an insurance policy.
Robert, who was Brett Favre's backup?
Rodgers.
And how many years did he sit?
3.
Thank you.
This is going to be the 3rd year of that.
I know. I'm not saying that Jordan Love should stay with the Green Bay Packers. That's not what I'm saying. But there have been successful quarterbacks that have sat behind successful quarterbacks and became good players. Jordan Love played 1 game, and now we're going to everybody, he's terrible. He played 1 game.
It's funny to me.
But Jim, you could speak to this a lot better than any of us being in the NFL all those years. You see guys practice day in, day out. The Packer organization has a good feel how good Jordan Love is going to be at this point. They're not looking at game film out of college. They saw him at practice every day. If they felt he was their quarterback of the future, they may have taken a chance with him the way the 49ers apparently are going to do with Trey Lance. They obviously feel it's night and day between Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. That's why they signed Aaron Rodgers. If Jordan Love showed tremendous upside, maybe they stick with him. They see him every day. You know how it is being at practice.
I just don't want to knock the kid for 1 game.
1 game, yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to knock the kid for 1 game. Let's get him in there.
Yeah, Jim, he's terrible. What do you mean he's terrible? You saw him play 1 game. You're not watching him in every practice. The Packers must think that. I don't know. I got Aaron Rodgers. I'm not playing Jordan Love. I'm not playing.
But you got a guy. How many MVPs has Rodgers won? 3?
Won 2 straight. I think he's won 3. Yeah,
3. Well, you got a guy like that. It's hard to evaluate him. And now with the cut down, and I'm not giving him excuses, but cut down the preseason, and Love is not getting a lot of game time. In 1 game, and it's a little difficult for quarterbacks because of the reads and everything. And who knows what goes on in that quarterback room? Are they really working with him to get him better?
I think they're sending the signal though that he's not. I mean, think about what Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the commotion last year, not just the vaccine stuff, but just saying I don't want to play for. Remember, he skipped most of training camp last year. He's won a lot of money. I mean, he's almost 40, guys. I just can't believe if Jordan Love was really good these last 2 seasons and in the camps and everything. I mean, they could have traded him for a haul, Rodgers, So I think that really they're sending the signal that this guy is just probably not going to be, he's probably not going to make it. Mm-hmm. Everything is perception. He might set the world on fire. I'm just looking at perception.
Yeah, but he's in a tough situation. Yeah. I think regardless if he's good or not, he's in a bad situation. Yeah. And we'll never know.
You look at Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo, right? if things happen the way they might have back in New England when they were thinking about getting rid of Tom Brady. Of course, Tom Brady went on and won 2 more Super Bowls. But if you think about if that really happened, what would happen to Jimmy Garoppolo then on a great New England team? I don't know. I don't know.
It might not have won 2 Super Bowls.
Might not have.
No.
Might not have. Might not have. But Jackie might have. That's the other side of the coin, right?
Yeah.
You don't know. It's all about timing, position, where you're at.
Yeah.
I mean, that has a lot to do with football. So, but let's change to basketball real quick.
Yeah.
The Nets last year were odds-on favorite to go to the championship. A lot of people had them on odds favorite to go to the championship again this year. The chemistry, people aren't playing. You had the big 3, and Durant's hurt, and Kyrie's off somewhere in Africa sometimes doing
Right.
whatever. Or he's sightseeing in Europe, and then you got James Harden there trying to keep the team together. James finally gets fed up, says, "I want out of here." But the Nets overall, Robert, people don't realize that they have a good, solid team. They have good players on that team. If Durant is healthy and hot, and Kyrie, he comes back from Brazil in time for the playoffs, I mean, these guys still got a chance, don't they?
Well, I mean, I saw the Philadelphia game too. I mean, that's their potential right there. I mean, you saw them blow out that Harding-led and Joel Embiid Philadelphia team, but 15 games to go. There's not many of these games. 11 of those 15 are either against the Knicks, which is in New York City, or at home, and they're an 8 seed. And remember, we talked about the Lakers last week. The lowest seed ever to win a finals is a 1995 6-seed Rocket team. They're like 3 games back from being in that 6 seed. I don't know if they can get that 6 seed with this vaccine thing, not playing home games with Brooklyn. So my answer would be no, but if they can figure out a way to get Kyrie in these next 2 weeks to play the home games, yeah, they could do it. Yeah. But I'm saying no because I don't think a law is going to break the way.
If you win the play-in, Rob, if you win in the play-in tournament to 1 game, then you start with a clean slate, basically. The danger with not making the top 6 is you have the play-in game, the 1 game, and anything could happen in 1 game in the NBA.
Yeah.
No,
but the home game thing, that just it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even without freaking Kyrie, I mean, listen, that's a pretty solid team there with Durant leading the way, but they're not championship winners with just Durant playing there. So it's just interesting to me how all of a sudden this team is picked and it spirals, and it's just so much drama in Brooklyn, boy. I'll tell you, my dad's from Brooklyn. He never told me there was so much drama there. You got the Lakers, and of course, we talk about the Lakers a lot because they're one of the most historic franchises in the NBA, and they have some of the most historic figures, the latest one being LeBron James. Anthony Davis can't stay on the court. They made some bad moves with the help of LeBron, a lot of people say. And their season is in jeopardy. I mean, I don't even think if they get the playoff, they win a play-in game. I don't think so, but maybe they do. What do you think for LeBron next year? Does he want out of LA now? LeBron's won everywhere he's been. He's younger. He just got on the LeBron train, basically. He'd take you there. All you got to do is kind of play a little defense and help him out. He can't do that no more. 37 years old. He'll hit it once in a while. He'll throw up 50 on you, but he can't do that every game. So what do you think LeBron's plans are for next year, Robert?
At first, I thought maybe he may seek a trade, but his son's going to be a senior next year in high school. And he still has those business dealings. He does the shop show thing. I think he stays there 1 more year. He's only got 1 year left. I think he'll stay out through the 2022-2023 season. Again, like I was saying last week, I think they can possibly trade Westbrook either this summer or by the trade deadline. If you trade him by the trade deadline or on the trade deadline, the other team only picks up a portion of that $40 million plus salary for Westbrook. So I think LeBron will hang around LA 1 year. And this time next year, who knows?
Robert,
Yeah.
they brought up an interesting thing. They lost to Houston.
Yeah.
When they lost to the Rockets, they said one of their players said they were trying to find Carmelo Anthony all the time. And that was interesting because he doesn't play defense, they were saying, and that they knew they could get Carmelo Anthony in problems. And you're right. I think the problem with him is they got players that nobody plays defense.
Yeah.
Nobody plays defense for the Lakers anymore.
You know,
They're
that's
going to get some younger
revealing. I didn't
players.
hear that, Jim, about lately
Yes.
about Carmelo Anthony. But when he came up during his prime with Denver, he would constantly get into it with the coach, George Karl, who accused him of not trying to play defense. And, wow, that's the first I heard of it with the Lakers.
It was said this week when they lost to the Rockets.
Wow. And, you know, Russell Westbrook, too, is now reacting to the fans in a way, and I know Pags mentioned it, they call him Russell Westbrook. Okay, you know, and rather than just ignore it, he's saying he's going to protect the family name. So right there, he's fueling the fans to keep saying it more and more. That's not an offensive term in the sense that I would ever kick a fan out of a game if I was security. If they keep yelling Russell Westbrook and they get removed, now I got a problem with security removing a fan over that. If you get personal, talk about a guy's family in another way, that's another matter. But just that goes in sports. What are we going to do? You know, mute the people in the crowd where they can't say a thing? It'll get to a point we won't even allow them to boo anymore.
It's ridiculous. I mean, there's a tennis player. She was crying last night in Osaka because somebody was booing her in the crowd. That's what the crowds are there for. It's just that's white noise, you know.
You know, Robert. This is the problem that I mentioned. The betting thing. There's a lot of players out there that, for some reason or another, they feel entitled to certain things, and they feel, you know, certain things bother them more than it used to bother them in the past. And they're not really real problems that people deal with every day. It just blows my mind. It's very interesting to me to watch how people react when they're in a spotlight, and that's where you want to be. And this is what you're supposed to do. And it just drives me crazy sometimes. But anyway, I don't get back into that again. Robert, one last question for you.
Yeah.
2 more teams added to the MLB playoff roster. As I talked to Keith really quick, why try to build a good team anymore? Have an average team, get in the playoffs, and then turn it on. Why even try to be the best anymore when we have playoffs like the playoff systems that we have now?
Well, I like the new add-on. I didn't know that they took away the 1-game playoff. That is eliminated. The 2 top seeds in each league will have a bye week. It's kind of like the NFL, right? So I'm actually proud for once in a long time. I'm proud of what the MLB has done. I can't believe I'm saying this. Only thing they need to do with this new agreement is shorten the season. Maybe start a little sooner and end it around July the 31st, the regular season, and then start the playoffs in August so you're not competing directly with NFL. But that's me wishful thinking. But I'm looking at these new rules and with the designated hitter, that's going to help free agency for the National League. Time pitches next year, not this year, but time, and they're going to ban shifting next year. So I'm pretty happy for this.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
I know you're a purist, Mac. You don't
Well,
want.
well, can I just say one thing? Unlike the NFL, where you give a team a few extra days off, that's a good thing to get that rest. Baseball's really about timing more so. And a few extra days off in baseball at the end of a season, that could work against the team.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be helping a team. It would actually
It
maybe
worked in the NFL. It worked against teams in the NFL.
The only
But
thing,
on
the
balance,
only
but
place,
the team, Jim, doesn't the team in the NFL prefer the bye week to rest up? Isn't that more of a positive than a negative?
Well, the argument Matt made was good.
go out and party.
Because I'm sorry, Matt. The thing is that because there's not as much hitting in practice anymore, and it is a timing sport, being in the NFL, especially on your offensive and defensive lines, that takes a toll on you. Where a team that's playing, it still has its timing, and we saw that this year with the teams that had buys, and they struggled in the playoffs.
You know, Robert, the only good thing, and Jack says bad, the only good thing I can see with resting, with the advantage of team resting in baseball would have, would to reset their lineups. I mean, if you're going, if you're going from one game to another, you just got to start the next guy. You can have your top three ready to go against anybody if you got that bye. So it depends how long the rest is, and that could work in their favor. That's the only thing I think about that. So, Robert, thank you for coming in as you do every week. Always prepared, always looking sharp. Breaking news all the time. I'll be looking for you on your tractor next time. Big news breaks, Robert. I'll be there with you. Okay.
I will do that, guys. You know, we got free agency starting Wednesday. Legal tampering starts tomorrow.
Yes.
I can't wait.
Yes, it does. Robert, thank you for coming in. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Have a good show.
All right. Have a good show.
See you guys.
Have a good day. Excuse me.
There you go, folks. Always love having Robert. And Robert is I mean, this guy's up studying. He's texting me like the next day, the morning before. What's the topics? Robert, I get him to relax me. God bless you. But anyway, great analyst. I love having him on. He's been with me and Jack from the beginning. He was with me before I was with Jack. There's something about him. He really gets into it. He's very, very prepared. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side with Jamie Pags. Jamie Pags does a lot of different things I didn't know. As I get to know the man more, I'm not sure if it's good or bad that I get to know him more, but no, I'm kidding. It's good. But Pags does a lot of great things, and he did something awesome yesterday for Northeast Streaming Sports, and a sport that I used to remember watching all the time on TV that kind of disappeared. And maybe you'll start seeing it more, maybe here on Northeast Streaming Sports. We'll be right back after this, folks.
When the job is done, this guy'll be ready to dig into something mighty good to eat.
How do you handle a hungry man? The manhandlers.
One of the manhandlers is Campbell's vegetable beef. Gets a man-sized supper off to a good hot start. Good.
The manhandlers.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Presents Chester Cheetah.
I'm Chester Cheetah. I'm just a cool dude in a loose mood. Until I see those Cheetos. Then my cool turns to drool. My style and ease surrender to my urge for the snack that goes crunch. It's not easy being cheesy.
Cheetos cheese-flavored snack. Cheese that goes crunch.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but
Oh, shoot.
I heard you want to be a frito bandido like me. You do? Then you must sing the bandido song. Let's sing together. You just follow the bouncing Fritos corn chips bag. Ay, 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 ay. I am the Frito Bandido. I like Fritos corn chips. I love them, I do. I want Fritos corn chips. I'll get them from you. Ay, 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 ay. Oh, I am the Frito Bandido. Give me Fritos corn chips and I'll be your friend. The Frito Bandido, you must not offend. Now, boys and girls, you are Frito Bandidos too. You sing the Frito Bandido song, and you're loco for crunchy Fritos corn chips. That's nice. Munch, munch, munchy bunchy Fritos corn chips.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
How were they killed? Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac, Jack, and Jim. This week's in Sports Show, I'm live 8 through 10 a.m. every Sunday. We're on Roku, YouTube, and Facebook Live. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch and Jim Jeffcoat. How you doing out there, fellas, as we get into the last part of our show? Pags will hopefully be up soon. He might be really tired, and he did a lot of work yesterday, but hopefully he comes in. If not, we'll talk a little bit about what happened anyway. I've been great. That's the Connecticut River Valley Northmen that they are going to be one of the teams that we're going to be help benefiting in the Connecticut Semi-Football Pro benefit. And real quick, guys, I want to give everybody a quick look at what's happening June 27th, 3 to 9, as me, Jack, and Jim will all be at this event. If you're in the Granby area, June 27th, you got to stop in and check this. So there you go, folks. Again, it's Keep the Dream Alive where we're working hard for the young guys out there that are trying to get scholarships, maybe get into a summer professional football league, the XFL, the USFL, even into arena football, and possibly a workout in the NFL. It's a long shot. I know that a couple in history have gotten workouts. I know last year a quarterback got a scholarship from the film that he put out from playing semi-pro football. He ended up getting and playing college football. So it does help him. And these are mainly kids that are from, single parents, and they don't have the funds to go to college. So we're gonna try and see if we can provide them with some funds. So if you're in the Connecticut area, in Granby, Connecticut, La Fogata restaurants in Granby, June 27th, 3 to 9. Stop on by. Tickets are $10. You get to meet all these great sports guys, get some autographs, talk with Jim a little bit. Don't talk about his dog. He gets very upset when you talk about his dog. He might hit you if you get too carried away about his dog. So just stay away from that conversation with Jim, and everything will go fine. So that's the only thing I tell you.
I'm not going to talk about it because you said we shouldn't talk about it, Mac. But now I'm intrigued. That's all. About Jim's dog.
I'm intrigued too.
All right, so there you go. Pags will probably challenge Jim to an arm wrestling contest since he knows something.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Since he found out the technique to do it.
Right, and Pags hasn't shown up yet, so let's push on a little bit about what happened last night. Our Roku channel on Northeast Streaming Sports went live for the first time at a major event, arm wrestling down in Philadelphia, where over 350 people went ahead and they competed in this in all divisions, all different weight classes, men, women, and Pags did a great job. That's the reason why he's our social media director, and he does a great job when he ever goes live, with all his experience with TikTok and Instagram and all that. Couple cameras, he was in there interviewing people, had a guy that was doing this for 43 years. And guys, I remember watching this Wide World of Sports on different channels, just the arm wrestling, and it used to be on quite a bit, and you really don't see it around anymore. There's certain competitions that you don't see around, arm wrestling, roller derby, all this stuff. But this was really interesting because you saw older guys beating younger guys in the same class, or smaller guys beating bigger guys that were more muscular. It's all about technique. It's all about speed. Strength, of course, has something to do with it, but not as much as you would think.
I remember Wide World of Sports once, and I can't recall the names exactly, but one of the competitors said he likes to do a lot of road work. He likes to do a lot of running because in a long contest, he feels that's going to give him an edge over the other competitors who don't put as much emphasis on running as he would.
Interesting.
Sure. I mean, this is maybe one of the oldest sports there is, if you think about it, right? You go into a bar, you want to show off, you get your adrenaline going, and you get an argument, or you want to challenge somebody to arm wrestling. And as Pac said, he used to do that, and he'd win. And when he started getting into real arm wrestling, he would lose all the time until he really started learning how to do it. He even sponsored a guy that was in a wheelchair, ended up winning the world finals. The guy could get up and stand up, but his technique was so good that he ended up winning the world finals over in Belgium. So Pags is a long time participating in wrestling. He sponsored a guy in wrestling, arm wrestling. And like I said, he did an outstanding job last night on Roku TV. I'm not sure what the views were for our first live broadcast. I'll find that out later on today. But a great job by him. Thanks, Pags. And I was going to talk to him a little bit, and we all know a little bit about baseball. Philadelphia Phillies did pick up a reliever, Jack. And let's see if I can get his name. Let me see if I can get his name for you really quick. Jeurys Familia from the Mets. They did.
I guess they absorbed his contract. Familia was a really good reliever for the Mets during the time they went to the World Series in 2015, and then he became a free agent. He went to Oakland, and then he came back to the Mets. They re-signed him to a deal for a little too much money. It didn't quite work out, and now he's with Philadelphia. It's very interesting that if Familia excels for the Phillies, because they also got Zach Wheeler as a free agent, from the Mets. The Mets didn't want to come up with the big money for Zach Wheeler, and Zach Wheeler has been nothing short of outstanding for the Phillies. So, that's interesting.
Well, there was, and speaking of the Mets, big move by the Mets picking up Chris Bassett from the A's to add to their rotation. They're not fooling around over there, guys. They're not fooling around over there. They want to win this thing. And,
I got to tell you, Jim, we joke about the pile and getting hit across the middle, but Chris Bassett got hit with a line drive in the head from the mound, and that is worse than anything.
I would agree.
I would be, you talk about batters being scared to step into the box, but what if you're a pitcher? That's why I never like to play softball with the clincher. I would never pitch. I'd get in the outfield. I mean, that is anything worse than that? A line drive coming back?
I don't know. Yeah. Who's in a better position right now, the Mets or the Yankees?
I think it's the Mets, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I really do.
Unfortunately.
I mean, if their shortstop Lindor bounces back a little bit, if he does and has a decent season, I think the Mets have a real good shot. They just strengthened their pitching staff again. You got to win. You got to pitch to win, man. They're doing the right things. Their catcher's not bad that they picked up either, McCann. So they've been making moves to improve the Mets in a lot of different areas. And the Yankees pretty much have been standing pat. They really haven't done anything overall since Cole, and Cole really hasn't lit it up like he could to really improve that team.
Let's see, Matt, because the free agency is resuming. I think the Yankees are going to do something. I kind of feel the Mets, Jim, because Steve Cohen, the Mets owner, I think he's the richest owner in all of sports.
Yeah, he is.
$14 billion. So he can afford to lose $1 billion. Imagine that. He could, and he's a big Mets fan from when he was a kid. And he's shown he's willing to shell out crazy money. I mean,
But the Yankees have all that television money, correct?
Yeah, they got the Yes Network, and
it doesn't seem like they're making the right moves.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm very disappointed in the direction the Yankees have gone in the last few years. Really, I mean, they've been trying to pick a bargain basement,
exactly,
for injured people, and hoping that the return is good. And some, I mean, what's good? I mean, do you want good or do you want great? And it seems that since George Steinbrenner has passed away, that the kids are more worried about paying that luxury tax than they are about really going all in. And they've got a lot of holes, Jim. They got a lot of holes.
I agree 100%. That's why I asked that question, because it looks like the Mets arrow is going up and the Yankees arrow is going down, which is really sad.
Yeah, but you can't win, Jim, Mac, because when George Steinbrenner was in his heyday, the Yankees, won a couple of World Series in the late 70s. Then they were accused of buying pennants, okay? So let's say the Yankees are spending all this crazy money and they start winning World Series. People are going to say they bought it. They're going to want the rules to change. And you can't win. And fans always play with monopoly money.
And I understand what you're saying, Jack, but the Rams just brought us a Super Bowl, right? That's just the way sports are today.
But they did it with draft choices. That's what they traded away as much as money. They were bold. They went against the way things are done in the NFL. In the NFL, draft choices are considered like gold. That's what Jimmy Johnson always used to say. Yeah. And they were willing to trade their draft choices. Like even we mentioned like a team like the Cowboys, all they got back from Mari Cooper was a 5th-round draft choice. Right. So it depends on the philosophy, of a team, what they're willing to do.
But they did say $16 million, which may enable them to get more players.
Yeah, but here's the thing too, is when we grew up, teams didn't have the things they had today, free agency and players moving around as much in any sport. Now you do. And now you don't have as much time. You saw coaches last year get fired after 1 year.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years. You don't have the time. You got to do it now. And the general managers are understanding it. They don't have the time they used to have to develop a team over the long term. Win now. That's everybody saying. The fans are saying win now. The administration, GMs, and the owners are saying we got to win now. And that's the thing. You're not going to get 10 years in the same spot. The Pete Carrolls, the Belichicks are guys that are just in the past. Now, you're not going to see that in any sport. In any sport. I mean, you got to win now, or your head is on the block.
But that isn't that the correct thing to do? You know, when I was growing up, I hated to hear that a coach had a 5-year plan. That gives him an excuse to lose for the first 4 years. Then he makes some progress in the 5th year and he expects an extension, on that. I don't go for that. We see it all over the NFL. You should cut your losses. You know, we had it with Sam Darnold in New York. Well, he had only 3 years. Get him this, get him that. You know, but Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, guys like that, they didn't need the 5-year plan. They did it in their rookie year and Joe Burrow had no offensive line in his rookie year, and he shined.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just hard. It's hard because for every Joe Burrow, there's another player or coach that didn't get there. Let's talk about the Texans. We thought Culley did a good job, but he didn't have enough time. They decided they were going to move on, and the owner has the right to do that. That's not what I'm saying. But, I mean, it is hard to change a team in 2 years. It is hard because you got personalities.
You know, I think it has a lot to do with, Jim, what kind of team you're talking about. If you're talking about a team that's been near the bottom for a long time, that continually loses, I think there's a problem there, right? If your team is somewhat successful, you at least have a base to start with.
Yes.
It's easier to change it around, right? You know, even when Parcells took over, everybody thought, well, the first year was 3 and then he went 9 and then he won 9 games. But the Giants did make the wild card game, did make the playoffs like a year or two before that. So he did have a base. Yeah. He just messed up his first year. He didn't know what he's doing. So I think people like Tomlin, who are always successful, even if their teams aren't the best, I think there's still a place in football for these guys. I think Tomlin could be there as long as he continues to have success. They'll be there forever.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. All I was going to say is you're right. There are certain organizations that operate like that, but a lot of organizations don't operate like that. It's more that don't than do.
True.
Because of Tomlins, and that's why they have success. But it also is the pressure from the media, the fans, and everybody surrounded it. Why is this guy not winning? It happened with New York, with the Giants. I thought the Giants had talent. I thought they were going to get better, and they didn't. And you saw what happened. I mean, it is hard. You've had 2 coaches in 4 years. I mean, and you say, well, we got to show some improvement. And I agree. You have to show some improvement, but you got to everybody's got to be on the same page. Everybody's got to be, this is what we need to improve instead of going to get guys like we talked about the receiver from Detroit. He didn't fit with the Giants.
No, not at all.
And things like that. You got to find the right players that fit into there. If you're going to
Golden Tate. But let me tell you, when we talk about records, Dan Campbell with the Lions had a record, I think it was 3-13-1 this past season, if I'm not mistaken. That's a terrible record. That's normally a record that would get a guy fired. But they showed a lot of fight, the Lions, a lot of spunk, unlike the Giants, who were 4-13. The Giants were dreadful. They were non-competitive the second half of the year. The Lions were always competing. Right. And that's how I think it's judged. You could tolerate losing to a point if the team is fighting hard, they're competitive, they're not giving up. But if they give the impression they're giving up, they're boring, they're non-competitive, you can't stick with a guy like Joe Judge. You could say, well, he's only had 2 years. I mean, 2 years is going to turn into 4 years of the same thing. I mean, you can only wait on a guy so long.
So my question to that, I'm sorry, Mac. All I was going to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you pick the right guy for your team? You have to really do a lot of research. Is he going to be?
You see, Jim, I think Campbell had the team fought because it was his first year. They did the same thing for Judge his first year, right? They're excited. It's a new coach. You're going to play hard all the time. They want to put something together. What's going to show me is this year how Campbell's Detroit Lions play. That's to me going to be the most important year.
Yes.
Because it's the first year. Everybody's excited. Everybody wants to do this. And next year, if there is no improvement, then players are going to start saying, well, this is, I thought this was going somewhere. But you have a great point, Jim, in the fact that, and I think Pickles does too. Mm-hmm. Detroit ownership for some reason hasn't been able to get that going, and you got to blame the owners for a lot of this stuff. The Jets owners, they haven't been able to get this thing going. It has to do with picking the right GM, I guess, the right coach. But how involved are the owners? And you said something to us really telling one time. You told us that Jerry Jones said there's maybe a handful of owners that really want to win.
Yes.
That really want to win. They're into their teams. And I believe that's true. From what I saw, I very much believe that's true. I really don't know if the Detroit Lions want to win. I don't know if the Jets want to win. I don't know right now if the Giants really want to win. Hopefully they do. But there are some teams that just sit at the bottom and they have a little spurt and they head right back down the bottom again. And they can't get it together. And I think there's a lot to do with the owners.
And then it's a lot about how the proceeds from the NFL are shared. I mean, everybody's going to make money. If you own an NFL team, that's why you don't see them for sale unless somebody passes away and unless they didn't do the things with the inheritance tax. They don't take them out of there. Then there's a reasoning why, because everybody makes a significant amount of money. I mean, they're talking about it even in the pandemic era. What's the cap going to be? $208 million or $1 billion now? It's crazy. I mean, the money they make under the cap and everything. Yeah. I mean, you make money. It is a money-making thing. Now, the guys that suffer this is the reason Carolina is probably looking for a quarterback and get better is Tepper. He put a lot of money into that, Tepper.
Yeah.
And he's got to make his money back.
Yeah.
The older owners, they've already paid their,
What do you do? Let's say they tried to get Deshaun Watson, but Houston won't take him back in any deal if they can work out a deal with Carolina. I mean, Sam Darnold. What do you do with Sam Darnold?
That's a good question.
Carolina. That's what I meant. They make a deal with Houston for Deshaun Watson. They give him tremendous assets because they guaranteed Sam Darnold's contract for next year at a hefty price for 1 year. So
if you don't have a no trade clause, you send Sam Darnold with him to Houston.
I mean, who would take him for what? He's getting paid close to $20 million and whatever.
But
I think the point, guys, that has to be brought up is the GMs want control. They're given control now, and they want a head coach who's going to basically take orders from them. They don't want too big of a personality unless they've had a prior relationship, like with the Giants. Joe Shine, their new GM, he came over from Buffalo where he was the assistant GM, and he's bringing along the offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, who he knows he has a great relationship with. So there's a partnership. So I think in the case of David Culley, it was a question where he wasn't going to take orders all the time. He wanted to do things a certain way. And I heard he didn't want to fire his assistants. That was a sticking point with him, too.
I've heard that, too.
So they bring on Lovie Smith, who has a good resume. He did go to a Super Bowl. But to move on from David Culley, he did a really nice job at Houston. I don't care what their one-loss record was. That franchise was a mess. And they were competitive in most of their games.
Definitely agree. Take our last quick break, folks. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes. We still got some more sports to talk about, so stick with us.
It certainly is a big bun. It's a very big bun. Big, fluffy bun. It's a very big, fluffy bun.
Where's the beef?
Some hamburger places give you a lot less beef on a lot of bun.
Where's the beef?
At Wendy's, we serve a hamburger we modestly call a single. And Wendy's single has more beef than the Whopper or Big Mac. At Wendy's, you get more beef and less bun.
Hey, where's the beef? I don't think there's anybody back there.
You want something better. You're Wendy's kind of people.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Shaper is the one beer to have when you're having more than one. Shaper pleasure doesn't fade even when your thirst is done. The most rewarding flavor in this man's world for people who are having fun. Shaper is the one beer to have when you're having more than one.
Ever wonder what makes Schaefer the one beer to have when you're having more than one? One reason is more than one fermentation. Most brewers just ferment their beer once, but Schaefer is fermented twice. Once to make it beer, and twice to make it Schaefer. The one beer with flavor so fine, it keeps shining through glass after frosty glass. More than one fermentation is one reason, but of course there's more than one reason behind the one beer to have when you're having more than one.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, isn't he?
Let's try this one. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac, Jack, and Jim This Week in Sports special, live here Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m., live on Roku, YouTube, and Facebook. A little bit about that commercial first, Schaefer beer. Schaefer beer doesn't exist anymore, folks.
That's what I was going to say.
But it did, and it was my father's favorite beer. And, of course, it was the cheapest, too. It was cheaper than a six-pack of soda. And you did have to have more than one to start getting used to the taste of it. So it's a great commercial, and that's why I run that ad, kind of in memory of my dad and you know how things were when I was a kid. And on a promo, there's a guy in a black hat saying he hates the Dallas Cowboys.
I know him.
I watch Jim's face every time that comes on. He just shakes his head, you know. And there's a reason for this. It's not because I hated the Cowboys as a great team. I respected them. But God, when they were in their heyday in the 70s, the Giants could never beat the Cowboys. And I dreaded playing them every time that we did. They were so much better than we were.
And that's funny that you say that, because obviously I grew up in the 70s in New Jersey, where I'm from, the Jersey Shore, and I despised the Cowboys too.
Yeah,
but
it was
quickly when they started paying me, I became a huge Cowboy fan.
Dallas Cowboy fan. That's the truth. That's the truth.
You know, it's funny. I never really liked the Cowboys. I kind of was neutral in a certain way. Like I'll watch a game and the Jets aren't involved, and I might side with one team over the other. And I don't know why, but for some reason I never rooted for the Cowboys.
And it's kind of funny. I never liked the Jets, but there's a reason behind it. I grew up, and our rivals were Sam Miller School, Long Branch High School in New Jersey, and they were green. They were called the Green Wave. So I liked nothing green.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't
and
it
that
weird?
was the team. I didn't ever like them. That's to be honest with you. So that's why I didn't like the Jets.
Isn't it weird how we form our opinions and our likes and dislikes? It's crazy. You know, those were that was our nemesis, was the Cowboys. Since the day we let Landry go to the Cowboys, and he didn't win a game that year, his first year, but he tied the Giants, and I was like, oh, that was the beginning of the end for the Giants for a long time against the Cowboys. And when they beat the Cowboys, it was like we won the Super Bowl, because the Cowboys were so good, and that was very rare back when I was a kid. So the hatred isn't from the team itself, because they always had a great team. When I was growing up, it was just that my team was always getting clobbered by them. So that's what it was. So anyway, so I just love playing a promo and watching Jim's face every time.
That cracks me up.
That I play that promo with James.
That and the one about Brooklyn.
Let me ask you this, Jim, with players. If they were a free agent and all factors are equal, how important is it to go to a certain city? If you have a chance to sign with Miami as opposed to a place like Green Bay or Pittsburgh, I mean, wouldn't they want to go to Miami instead, unless the franchise is so great, you know, at Green Bay or Pittsburgh at the time?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, like you just said, Green Bay has such a history. And even kids, you know, a lot of these kids have grown up with the Green Bay and the Aaron Rodgers and things like that. Well, Miami in the last couple of years hasn't had any success, you know, back to the Shula days. And they want to go with the opportunity to win, because obviously with the media now, and you have all these outlets, that helps you more off the field. In Green Bay, you know, having the opportunity to play with a guy like you said, Aaron Rodgers, or if you go to LA now with Stafford, plus it's a media center. New York has to, when they build up their brand again, they'll want to go there. It's places where, and it has to do a lot with living too. And you really where you want to live at, you know. Miami obviously is
They'd want to live in Miami. Who'd want to live in Green Bay or Buffalo compared to Miami if there's a choice? If they're coming from LA?
Get a summer home, Jack. Let me,
and like I said, I spent 6 months in Buffalo and 6 months in Dallas.
Let me ask you a question, Jim, and it kind of piggybacks what Jack asked you. So suppose you're with the Cowboys and you're successful there, and Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants are both on the phone, and they both want you. And because you grew up a Giants fan, would that have affected your choice?
It would have affected it. There's no question about it, because that's where I grew up at. I grew up 25 minutes away from the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
No, I remember it sticks to me that Knicks had a player when they won the 1970 championship, a bench player named Mike Reardon. He was traded to the then Baltimore Bullets. Okay, that was their name at the time. They're now the Washington Wizards. And he said, I'm going to have a hard time adjusting because I grew up my whole life. I was a Knicks fan. And then I became a Knicks player. And this is the first time like I'm leaving. He said it was really going to be difficult for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
it is difficult.
I think a lot has to do with where you grew up and who you're a fan of too. Believe it or not, if everything's equal, You know, I mean, if you can go to the Dolphins in the Super Bowl race, and you can go to the Giants, and you grew up a Giants fan, I think that will weigh heavily on your mind.
Oh,
I mean,
it does. It really does. I don't know how much it weighs these days, but when I was growing up, it weighed a lot on your decisions.
Let me ask you another thing. We talked about Deshaun Watson before. Let's say there's no suspension. Let's just make believe he's not going to get suspended. How many teams that need a quarterback are not going to go after him based on morality? Okay? I'm sure there are going to be some teams who are going to say, we don't want him based on this or that. You know, we want character guys.
Yeah, but you got to look at it too. The majority of teams that are looking at them are small market teams. And I don't think they'll have the issues that the bigger markets, if it was the Rams or say something like that, Chargers. I know they have quarterbacks, or New York, I think it'd be more difficult, Jets or Giants. But in smaller markets, they can shield them a little better than they can in the bigger markets. That's just my opinion on it. And I think Watson, the civil suit, they're not going to probably suspend him for the civil suits. They would have suspended him if he was indicted. I don't think they're going to bother him now.
We'll see. We'll see. The
NFL,
I mean, the NFL is funny. I mean, sometimes they suspend them when you don't think they would, and they don't suspend them when you think they should. And I guess it comes down. Maybe there's a person-to-person meeting. I don't know. I don't know how it works, but it is weird how they do judge on who gets suspended and who doesn't for certain things that aren't written in stone. You know, they always say protect the shield, and when they do something that people are like, why are you suspending this guy, and you're not suspending that guy, and it does get crazy. Let's talk about a quarterback named Carson Wentz, who, when he played with the Eagles, he had that one great rookie year, right? He was going to be the MVP. I think the Eagles were like 11-1 or something ridiculous. You know, of course, he got hurt, and they went to the Super Bowl anyway with Foles. And everybody says, well, Carson Wentz isn't really as, you know, anybody can bring the Eagles to the Super Bowl, Nick Foles, because nobody knew who Nick Foles was. But there was always rumors. In fact, there were stories printed about the way he treated teammates, how he was a me guy, sort of like what you're reading about Kyler Murray right now, that, you know, it's all about him. So the stories had sources. They were legitimate. And, you know, they pushed down, they sent him to the Colts eventually. The Colts, he looked okay for a little bit, and then he fell off again there at the end of the year. I don't know. I don't blame him totally for it, but, you know, a job of a real good quarterback is to win those games near the end of the year, whatever you got to do to make that happen. He couldn't do it. So now he goes to the Redskins, who have a decent team. They're not Super Bowl contenders. I don't think Carson Wentz makes him a Super Bowl contender. I don't even know if he makes him a playoff contender, guys. What are your thoughts about that?
I'll let you go first, Jack, because it's going to take me a while.
I don't even think Carson Wentz is going to be their starter for the Washington Commanders by the time the year ends. And I think it's going to be the beginning of the end of Ron Rivera as the coach, because he's staking kind of, I'm not saying his reputation, but his coaching job on Carson Wentz. I mean, this is simple logic. If he goes to the Indianapolis Colts to be with Frank Reich, who was his offensive coordinator when he was at his best in Philadelphia, and he can't turn Carson Wentz around, he's going to a franchise that's disorganized, that's a mess. Carson Wentz isn't going to do anything there. I mean, it's just a bad move for Washington. I mean, they would have been better off even, and Jim's going to laugh at this, going back to Kirk Cousins even, and Carson Wentz. And that would have been pretty bold. Nothing. I mean, bad move by Washington. And Carson Wentz, is he still a starting caliber NFL quarterback? It could go either way, you know. If they got Carson Wentz to just be on their team as a backup, as a possible starter, okay, but they're picking up his contract and they're giving 2 third-round draft choices for him. Just a bad move by Washington.
Okay. First of all, and later this week, Frank Wright apologized for bringing Carson Wentz in to the Indianapolis Colts. And he said, I apologize to the Colts organization because I thought that I could do things with him, which obviously they couldn't. I think there's something going on, like where there's smoke, there's fire. I think Pags had mentioned it too about his issues in Philadelphia with the other players. And maybe these issues followed him to Indianapolis. But maybe you guys know how many quarterbacks have went to two teams that end up being very successful. This is his third team. So there's something within him. Is this, and I've always asked this question, is this era's Jay Cutler? And the reason I asked that is because when you saw the physical ability of Cutler, everybody was in love with him. But for whatever reason, he couldn't put it all together. Is Carson Wentz just another Jay Cutler? I think he'll start the season at Washington. And Jack, you probably are right. At the end of the season, either Rivera is going to probably say, hey, they're going to let him go, or they're going to have to make a decision. They got to find. I don't know if Wentz is the answer. Yeah. I don't know if he's the answer.
So what's the Colts going to do now? I mean, the Colts now have no quarterback. They got a decent running game. Their defense is okay. But, I mean, you just went from, 3 quarterbacks in 3 years. You just ran a gambit, or 3 quarterbacks in 4 years. So
there'll be some quarterbacks on the market. Mitchell Trubisky about there. They're saying he's going to the Giants, but if I'm Mitchell Trubisky, they got Daniel Jones. I'm looking at the Colts.
Can I make a bold prediction, guys?
Yes.
This is very bold. That Phillip Rivers comes out of retirement to quarterback.
That is bold.
Colts.
That's bold. That's a bold prediction.
Well, he did. He was their quarterback just a year ago. So
I've heard Andrew Luck might come out of retirement too. We'll see.
Yeah. But we've been saying this all the time about Jordan Love. The Colts might look at Jordan Love. They might. I'm not saying that's a guarantee, but there's Jimmy Garoppolo.
And you got the Steelers. You got the Steelers needing a quarterback too. Nobody's really talking about the Steelers. I heard that they might be interested in Watson. And, I mean, if you think about it, they took in Flores, who has a lot of outside things going on. So does Watson. Maybe they make a move and try to get Deshaun Watson there.
Guys, I trust Mike Tomlin. Mason Rudolph has been there so long as the backup. I don't think he would have been there that long unless Mike Tomlin thought he at least had the potential that he could get it done as a game manager at least, okay? I mean, that's my feeling. And then positioned to draft a quarterback, probably. Maybe Malik Willis falls to them, maybe Pickett. I think they may be thinking that. And if that doesn't happen, then they're ready to, roll with Mason Rudolph. And in any event, even if they draft a quarterback, odds are they're counting on Mason Rudolph to at least start the season and see how everything pans out.
Listen, if I was the Steelers, I'd go after Watson. I would. I want my quarterback of the future. I would do that. I definitely would try. I definitely throw my hat.
I don't have an argument, but I just wonder. We always talk about Wentz, and he did have that good year, but what has he done since?
Okay. He's played okay. He hasn't played like a great quarterback, that's for sure.
Yeah. Then Washington struggled defensively. They struggled defensively with all that talent, and that's a question mark too. Can they keep that together? Can they get better?
No. Yesterday, Jim, on our debate show, Mac and I and Dr. Paul, we debated with Mitchell Trubisky coming to the Giants. Is that the beginning of the end of Daniel Jones as a Giants starting quarterback? And I say it is. For the simple reason, when the GM, Joe Shine, interviewed, the Buffalo Bill assistant GM, Joe Shine, interviewed for the GM head job of the New York Giants, I'm sure the Giant ownership was emphasizing Daniel Jones because they've went on record as saying they've screwed Daniel Jones up with all the offensive coordinators and coaches. And Joe Shine promised to bring someone in, a head coach, who'll try to straighten Daniel Jones out. But if Mitch Trubisky's coming to the Giants, they're bringing in their boy, basically, Joe Shine and Brian DeBow. They're not going to, give up on Daniel Jones, but like a shark, Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah,
he's going to be their quarterback.
I understand what you're saying, Jack, but here's the thing. I think it's very unlikely that they'll get Mitchell Trubisky. And you say this is his guy. Mitchell Trubisky was only in Buffalo for a year. I don't know if it is. I think that's just speculation. Daniel Jones couldn't be a good quarterback in this league. Daniel Jones is done. You have to surround him with people. He didn't have it really at Duke, but if you can surround him with the right cast, I think Daniel Jones could be an adequate quarterback. Will he be a super?
They supported him with the right cast this year. I mean, they've made the moves. I've heard the same thing about Sam Darnold. He's had 3 years in the league, Daniel Jones. At some point, if he hasn't shown the signs by now, it's really risky to go forward with him.
I think he's shown signs. I would. The issue is what's going on with Saquon Barkley, and that's why they're trying to look at if they can move him. They'll probably move him. But the issue is around them. Like I said, they've had some bad fits in the receiving core. And you can speak more on this, Matt, but they've had some bad issues, and the offensive line has struggled. But we found out through Cincinnati, you don't need a great offensive. You need an adequate. But the one thing Cincinnati did was they had a great running game to help them out. And that's what the Giants don't have. Because I think the Giants, if they can find a good running game, they'll be all right. And the receivers, they got to find them. We can't have guys arguing in training camp. And like Byron, I'm sure Byron said this to you, you got to be different with receivers. And that's what happened with Joe Judge. He was killing those receivers, and we wanted old school, and we wanted pound and ground and everything. But these receivers run a lot more than they did in the past. And you got to take care of your receivers. The good, smart coaches know that, and they take care of them. But also, you got to have a running game. You got to have a running, especially in New York.
Jim, I looked at the stats of Trubisky and Daniel Jones. Trubisky leads him, not by a lot, but in all categories. And they got a little bit in Chicago. Chicago definitely had a better team than the Giants. There's no doubt about that. Better defense, better running game, the whole 9 yards. But after they went 11-3 with Mitch Trubisky as a starting quarterback, they fell off, and they kind of blamed Trubisky for that. I don't know if it's Trubisky's fault or not. I think Mitch Trubisky's an exciting young quarterback, and if he went to New York, there's at least going to be a competition. There's going to be a competition, and if Trubisky, if Jones starts the season and he has problems, Trubisky would go in, and it would be his chance. So I'm not totally against Trubisky going there, and I'm not sure if Daniel Jones is better than Mitch Trubisky. I'm not sure about that. So
I just don't think Trubisky is going to go to New York.
Maybe not.
It doesn't make sense.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe you're right. I think the Colts. I thought Washington would have been a better fit than Wentz. At least he could have run with the ball and kept Washington drives alive where Wentz can't anymore. So I think I don't know. I think Washington panicked. But anyway, so
just want one quick comment with Trubisky. He reminds me of Ken O'Brien, who was drafted the same year you were drafted, Jim.
Yes, 83.
And because Ken O'Brien basically did have a good career, but in that same draft came out Elway and Marino. So in comparison,
and Jim Kelly was in that draft.
And Jim Kelly went to the USL. In comparison to those guys, Ken O'Brien was looked down upon. And I think Trubisky being drafted in the same class, and especially ahead of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, I think that's hurt him in perception. If you didn't have Watson and Mahomes, I think Trubisky's still with the Bears. That's my opinion.
I would agree.
It's possible, very possible. So you mentioned, Amari Cooper's traded to the Browns, where I read Landry was trying to restructure the contract. They said other teams can start asking about him now. So I guess the restructuring isn't going too well. They had OBJ. They had Landry, who was, you know, he's a great receiver. You know, he may not be the best in the league, but he's great. And they had a good tight end. They have a very good tight end. The only thing they don't have is a quarterback that can make this happen. And again, as Robert said, Deshaun Watson is out there. Browns, I think, would be foolish if they didn't try to get Deshaun Watson. And I think Deshaun Watson wouldn't mind going to the Browns since they are a competitor. Them or the Steelers, really, I think Deshaun Watson would be thrilled to go to either of those teams instead of the Panthers or a team that's rebuilding. Those teams are playoff caliber teams already. Deshaun Watson may put them into championship caliber teams. What do you guys think about Deshaun Watson hooking up with Amari Cooper and whoever else receivers they got there, and with that tight end in Cleveland?
Jim, Jim Mack, there's a term, beggars can't be choosers. If I'm Deshaun Watson, I want to get out of Houston so bad. I'll go anywhere and not argue. I'm not going to exactly start waving my no trade clause. Could you imagine Houston called his bluff and out of spite kept him on their roster for the year? I don't care how much money he'd be getting. It would be driving him absolutely crazy. If he has a chance to go to the Carolina Panthers, you go over there. I know Christian McCaffrey's on the trading block, and you might think they're rebuilding. They still have a decent defense, a good defense. So you go wherever, you're sent.
I don't know.
I disagree. I disagree totally. He has the option. They're not going to keep him on the roster. They got to move on with him because he's taking up so much cap space. He does have the no trade. I'm not going to sit there and say, hey, trade me anywhere. I'm going to look at the team. And
if they play him, Jim, they call his bluff. Lovie Smith is to make him the starting quarterback. That's the last place he wants.
But basically, Lovie Smith said they're going to get rid of him. And basically, he has said that already. But let him call it. Then you got to play. But there are other teams that want him, and I'm going to pick the best team for my ability. And we mentioned it. New Orleans would be a good spot for him. New Orleans would be obviously Carolina would be a little bit more difficult because they got a little bit more issues. And the reason I say New Orleans is you got a new coach in Dennis Allen, and that gives them opportunity to give him time. In Carolina, they're putting everything on him. They're putting everything on him to win right now. And that's a little bit more difficult than going to New Orleans, which has had success and have been competitive. I like Carmichael.
Yeah, I mean, even last year, Jim, they were sort of competitive without, really having a good team anymore. They were still close to getting the playoffs. But I still think Cleveland and Pittsburgh, if I'm Deshaun Watson.
No. I don't have a problem with
that. Man.
I'm not a huge Baker Mayfield fan.
The problem with that is, will Pittsburgh and Cleveland give Houston everything they want for them? That's what's going to happen. And you're right. Lovie Smith said, I want this quarterback issue resolved before I agree to take this job. And according to what I read, it's resolved. He's gone. They're not going to keep Watson. So that's what I read anyway. So.
That's what I've read too.
So
if I had to guess, if you guys had to predict what team he's going to wind up with, Deshaun Watson, for fun, we have no idea for sure. Who do you predict if you had to? Where does he go?
Yeah, Jim.
New Orleans.
New Orleans. Jim likes New Orleans.
I say Philadelphia. They have 3 first-round picks this year, 15, 16, and I think 19, something like that. They could throw in Jalen Hurts, and they can give them an additional 2 number 1 picks the next 2 years after that. Make the boldest of moves. So my prediction is, and I wonder what our guy Pags would say, but I think the Philadelphia Eagles, that's where he's going to go. That's my prediction.
My prediction is the New York Giants, the heck with Daniel Jones, the heck with Mike.
They have too much of family type atmosphere. That's one franchise that would take.
Let's push all the chips into the table and just take the outside influence out. Go get Deshaun Watson.
The best place for him would be Pittsburgh under the leadership of Mike Tomlin in a smaller type city away from the limelight, and with Mike Tomlin to protect them.
But they still got masseuses there, so
Yeah,
I don't know.
They do.
Yeah.
Folks, we're going to end the show now. Thanks for joining us. Always fun having everybody in talking about this week in sports as we go over the biggest stories with some great guests and cover all the biggest stories for the week. We'll be back again next week, 8 to 10 a.m. with our guests again. Hopefully even a little better. Mac and Jack will be back Thursday at 8 to 10 a.m. Monday, Jack is up with Frank Lotierzo on the best boxing show on air called Glove Fist. And Wednesday, Jim and Byron Williams get together and give you a little bit of football talk and sports talk on J&B Talking Shop, a can't miss show. So, folks, have a great Sunday. Enjoy Selection Sunday. Get your brackets ready. What is it? You get $1 million if you pick everything right.
Everyone, which is
that still a thing? Is that still a thing? I don't know.
Yeah, it is still a thing.
It's still a thing. So Jack, right now, in his head, I see him thinking he's got it all figured out. He's going to be $1 million come the end of March Madness. Folks, have a great day, and we'll see you again soon on Northeast Streaming Sports and the Mac and Jack Sports.